Okay, so something massive is happening right now in India's startup world. And it's not just a simple market correction. It's a much deeper, much more strategic pivot. We're talking a shift away from the usual consumer apps towards some really high-value, science-led innovation. So what's actually going on? Let's dive in.
First, let's just get the headline number out of the way, because it's a big one. As of October 2025, more than 11,000 startups have had to shut their doors. That's a huge 30% jump from last year, and it's a clear signal that the ground is seriously shifting under everyone's feet.
So that number, it naturally leads you to this big question, right? Is this the bubble finally bursting? Is the big Indian startup dream over? Or, and this is what we're going to explore in this explainer, is this actually a really painful but totally necessary start of a brand new chapter? A more mature and honestly a more resilient one for Indian innovation.
Yeah, let's just call it what it is, the great startup reckoning. This isn't just about a few companies failing here and there. No, this is a deep, structural recalibration of the entire market. It's basically weeding out all the business models that were never going to last. And, in the process, it's paving the way for something entirely new.
Now, what's really wild when you look at this slide is just the sheer speed of it all. I mean, look at those numbers. We went from a couple thousand shutdowns over 3 years to over 28,000 in just 2. This isn't some gradual slowdown. It's a super rapid, super sharp correction that's hitting the whole ecosystem.
So, the big question is, why now? What's going on? Well, the heart of the issue, really, is a fundamental change in where the money is coming from. We are seeing the end of an era of easy money, and it is forcing a massive reality check on thousands and thousands of companies. And this quote just perfectly captures that change in thinking. The whole venture capital world isn't just throwing money at growth at all costs anymore. The conversation is completely shifted from how fast can you grow to show me how you're actually going to make money, show me a path to profit. So what's happening is this new funding reality is exposing some really deep fundamental weaknesses. As you can see here, almost half of the failures are just because they ran out of cash, which, let's be honest, is usually a symptom of a flawed business model to begin with. And then look at the next one. Another huge chunk failed because they built stuff that nobody actually wanted or needed.
But listen, this is not a story about doom and gloom. Not at all. As that tide of easy money goes out, it's revealing the solid ground underneath. And right in the middle of this consumer tech collapse, there's a new sector that's not just surviving, it is absolutely thriving. We're talking about the rise of deep tech.
And this slide really tells the whole story, doesn't it? It's like a tale of two different worlds. On one side, you've got a total bloodbath in sectors like edtech and fintech, with failure rates hitting as high as 80%. But on the other side, you see this incredible surge in funding for deep tech, for AI, for B2B SaaS. The sector's built on hard science and actual sustainable revenue. So what exactly is deep tech? It's a really important thing to understand. We're not talking about another new photo-sharing app or some clever business model. No, we are talking about companies that are built on real, foundational scientific breakthroughs, things like new materials, quantum computing, advanced AI, and it's stuff that's often protected by patents.
This chart just visualizes that pivot in capital perfectly. While overall tech funding in India actually dropped by 17%, look at this. Investment in deep tech ventures jumped 37%, and AI specifically saw a massive 58% surge. It's so clear where the smart money is heading, towards foundational technology.
Let's make this feel a bit more real. Take quantum computing. It's a perfect example of deep tech. It's being pushed forward by a national mission, and its market in India is expected to grow by almost 5 times by 2032. This isn't a short-term trend. This is long-term strategic innovation. Now, this big shift isn't just happening on its own. It's actually being actively fueled by a landmarked government policy that's designed to create a long, stable runway for these super high-risk, but also super high-reward ventures. Okay, what's so cool about this slide is you see the direct comparison. The 2026 policy literally creates a separate, privileged category just for deep tech. I mean, look at the key changes. The eligibility period is doubled. The turnover limit is tripled. This is the government sending a really clear signal about its national priorities. And this right here, this is the absolute game changer. 20 years. A normal startup gets a decade to prove itself. A deep tech startup, one that's working on really hard problems like new battery chemistry or biotech, now gets 2 decades. This gives investors the confidence to put in what's called patient capital, because they know these long, complex research cycles are being supported.
So when you put all these different pieces together, the market correction, the shift in capital, and the new government support, you start to see the bigger picture. This is way more than just a startup shakeout. It's really the beginning of an innovation renaissance for the country.
And this slide really lays out the long-term national strategy. The whole goal is to evolve India from a service-based economy, which has been its strength for decades, into an economy that's driven by creating and owning its own intellectual property. The ultimate goal here is something called technological sovereignty.
All right, so to wrap it all up, this isn't a collapse. It's a cleansing. The focus is off growth at all costs and squarely on profitability. Capital is moving away from apps and towards atoms, towards real, defensible, fundamental technology. And a landmark policy is giving this new era of innovators the runway they need to succeed.
And that leaves us with this one last really powerful thought. By giving its most ambitious scientific minds a 20-year runway to build whatever they can dream of, India isn't just creating a few new startups. It's positioning itself to solve some of the world's biggest, toughest challenges. So the only real question left is, which one will it solve first?